Is the future of a estate agency with hubs, Brian, Sarah? Talk to me!
Who wants to go first?
Well, ladies first.
Okay, so every time I open one of the industry papers at the moment, Property Industry Eye, Estate Agent Today, and the others, Negotiator, I see another agency has moved into a hub model. I know Humbert's sort of made some waves last year when they did it, and we're actually working with a few agents who are moving into that model now. And you've got to ask the question that there's been some discussion, shall I say, from some of the teams that we're working with, and they're saying things like, are we actually more an online agent now? They're struggling with the concept of being in a hub. And actually what we've uncovered with some of these teams is they're so much more productive. They can be more proactive and more productive from a sales environment in terms of actually getting calls done, in terms of actually getting the work done, than perhaps if they are distracted, shall we say, by the environment of a typical branch. So there's definitely...
No one walks into a branch nowadays, so what's all that about?
Well, vendors do, don't they?
True.
Existing clients are the ones that tend to come in
probably once every sole agency turn.
Yeah, exactly. To us, how long's left on the contract.
I mean, I'm just interested. When you say hubs, are we talking about the self-employed model, or are we talking about the employed model where the agent is closing the branch network down to save cash? Or are we talking both?
Well, I think we probably both. In fairness, like you said, people not going in anymore to agency offices. I don't agree with that entirely. I think that there's certainly evidence in certain high streets all over the country where there's still a pretty decent footfall.
Okay.
But I think in terms of some of the smaller, shall we say, villagey locations where you have the opportunity to move into a more metropolitan area, could be a better use of resources.
I mean, it's not going to work for you little villages that are, population of 5,000 or 10,000. Are you talking about more the big towns and the big cities here?
Sometimes it's just some of the regional firms that have had a really great growth and opened in small offices in, one of the firms that we work with, I won't name them, but they've got a sort of 4 or 5 offices in a very small area of a major city, so in the northern area. And actually it's been a great move for them because they've been able to bring all of the team together under one roof and, like I said, make it more...
has it affected them that they're not having so much presence on the high street? Have they physically closed down the offices?
Well, they've still got lettings operations, that particular business. But again, that goes back to the whole distraction of a branch. If you've got lots
Have they closed down the offices?
No.
Have you seen any that have closed them down and still been successful?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've only got to look at currently what your move are doing, for example, which obviously is something very close to my heart from my time there.
You were Big Cheese there, weren't you?
Well, one of the big cheeses.
We had David Nunes on the
yes, you had David.
Great
David, fantastic guy. And you can look at that, and actually, obviously, I think it's very important to say for the people involved, it's not great news. No. Some of them have been affected.
Maybe we could talk about that in another video. But
yeah, okay.
I mean, that could have been handled so much better.
Well, I wasn't party to what they did, but in terms of the hubs, though, obviously bear in mind that the hub is nothing new. Well, that model of working, whether it's self-employed or whether it's employed. The model actually, at the end of the day, is about speaking to more people. And if you've got 3 or 4 agents that are all working together in a central location, then they're more motivated. They have a bit more fun during the day because they're with colleagues more often than not, and actually can service more people, help more people.
But surely that's what the office is there for. You've got the manager, the valuer, and the neg. Are you talking about bringing all the valuers and all the negs together in one room?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you sort of have that environment, then it's much more motivating. It can be much more motivating for the people involved. And you believe and you've seen that you get more business from it?
We have seen the effect of some really good stuff now as it starts to take hold. I mean, I know it's not new, and Brian will tell you about his days at Foxton's when they operated it out of Chiswick Park, but actually, in terms of our more independent estate agent style that we would know outside of the London area, it's quite a newish concept to have these hubs. And there's quite a few people now who are really making it work without any damage to the brand whatsoever. And there's still, what the most important thing is, they're helping more customers, as Brian said, and that's the crux of it all.
What tips have you got for anyone out there who's thinking of going down the hubs route, so they don't make the same mistakes that others have made?
Well, be very clear on why you're doing it, first of all, because when we talk about hubs, it's not necessarily just something that people do to save some money, shut a few branches, put everyone in one place. It can be used, when it's done correctly, as a very good supporting tool to an existing branch network. Picking up the slack, for example, getting hold of people.
But I thought you were closing the branch network down anyway, weren't you?
Well, hubs can be used in different situations.
ways.
In fairness,
Okay, go on.
So yeah, if you are using it to support, then of course it picks up the slack that typical branch life can't normally deal with. But ultimately, it's about as long as the tip is, as long as the reasons that you're doing it, the people that you're employing it into those centres fully understand it.
What mistakes do people make with hubs?
Perhaps not sharing a clear vision of why it's happening.
And who's that why to? Is that to their staff, their suppliers, the punters in the town?
Well, it starts with the staff,
Yeah.
but it actually moves out to the customers and the punters in the town. The team have got to understand that in so many cases, hubs are seen as almost a negative, a little bit like you've just said about the Your Move LSL situation that happened a few weeks ago. That was, in my opinion, spun the wrong way. Actually, consolidation is not a bad thing if it's going to create more opportunity and help more people. And that's the thing. It's about making sure that if you go down the hub model, and there's lots of great things going on in the industry at the moment, but if you go down that hub model, then there's a huge opportunity to just be more streamlined and be more efficient. It doesn't mean you're closing because you're in trouble or there's cash flow issues or anything like that.
So what tip would you give to MDs to their staff? Get them all together, get them drunk and tell them?
Well, you could do that. It might work. They might not remember what you told them, though, in fairness. But I think certainly, just to pick up a point that Sarah made there, that the hub is not the answer to everybody's situations on the high street or not. It's got to be used more strategically, and there has to be a clear sense of why, a clear vision as to why we're doing this, why this is, and then that has to be communicated to the team, which can then motivate them very much so if it's delivered correctly. But it isn't right for everybody.
Okay, what about the message you give to the community, potential vendors, existing vendors? What tips have you got for that? And what mistakes have people made?
Well, certainly mistakes they've made is that they haven't, first of all, had a clear sense of why with the team, and therefore that then doesn't come through to the vendors. They're sitting there wondering what's going on, why in some cases where there's been a closure, why that's happened and what's happening to my property now. And of course they're going to get preyed on by other agents. But ultimately I think in terms of the tip to the agents for the vendors is to share that sense of why, explain to them. We have more people able to speak to you more often. We're there for more hours. We can hold your hand longer, in more depth perhaps than in branch life, because there's always someone there to pick up the slack which might not be there in the branch.
Indeed. Any other final thoughts on hubs before we go?
Well, customer experience is a bit of a buzz phrase at the moment, in not just in our industry, in pretty much every industry. And I think actually where it's appropriate for a larger regional firm to have a hub, it creates a better customer experience by utilising.
And we are in a service industry, aren't we?
Well,
Yeah.
Indeed.
Good
we
stuff.
are.
Yeah.
Well, this is the first of many videos that we're going to do. Some quite controversial stuff, so check back on some of the others and let's see how we get on. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.